Hello, my name is Carl Rogers, and welcome back to the Triple Loop Agile podcast. At Triple Loop, we believe that knowledge workers should lead happy, fulfilling, and effective lives. We help them do this by reframing, rethinking, and reimagining what is possible. Triple Loop Agile is about helping grow resilient and adaptive cultures of agility to solve real business problems. However, today I want to take a personal story and then tie it back. Today we're going to be talking about being thunderstruck. Triple Loop learning on the sharp end. So crack! The first lightning bolt felt right overhead. No rumbles of advance warning. Straight overhead. I am going to die. In the heart of the Californian Sierras, a thunderstorm disrupted a climbing adventure, revealing profound parallels between the art of scaling mountains and the principles of business agility. Yes, it's true. This short tale of mine, of thunder, rock climbing, and triple loop learning, serves as a captivating metaphor, at least I hope it does to you, for the importance of adaptability, critical reflection, and the strategic evolution in the business world. So a few weeks ago, I flew over to Los Angeles to join a friend to go climbing in the Californian Sierras. Now, even getting to the plane had been uncertain, frankly. In my over-eager, too-late training efforts, let's be honest, I had badly pulled a muscle in my left leg, and I spent June and July barely able to hobble half a kilometre without limping. My children's school is about 125 metres away from the house, and I could barely make it there and back again. So our hopes of reaching 4,000 metre peaks were entirely dashed by this, plus unusually heavy snow that winter that had left some of the mountain campsites closed for repairs. So instead, we diverted to Idlewild to go climb routes on the iconic 2,696 metre Taquitos Peak. I must admit, if I had known that I had to do about 350 to 400 metres of ascent straight up to the base of the cliff, I might have reassessed again. So if I tie this back for everybody, so how do we handle changes in plans or expectations, especially when external factors can disrupt our original intentions? So we were met by unseasonably wet weather and thunderstorms from the Saturday that I arrived through to the Tuesday. Now, given that we only had until the next Saturday morning at latest to climb, and the weather lost us at least one ascent day, as well as a rest day, and those rest days were really important given the state of my leg. On the first Sunday evening, we had all of the weather apps open. We were looking for a weather window for the following morning. There was a lot of variation in the forecasts, but it looked likely to us that any storm would break in the mid to late afternoon, as it had done on our first day. So on Monday at 4 a.m, my alarm woke us, and stepping out of the camper van, which was a luxuriously stark difference between this trip to California and my last one, which was 2008, where we were in tents for about 6 weeks, we were greeted by quite an interesting phenomenon. I can't edit that out because I can't say it better, so we're just going to have to stick with that. This phenomenon of heat lightning, manic flashes too far away to be heard, but yet lighting up the sky in quite a dramatic way. So we aborted and went back to sleep. By 9 o'clock, we were up again, and now the forecast looked marginally better, and so eager, and frankly too eager, we jumped in the truck and headed up to the trail head. That was about a 10-minute drive. So my question to you is, have you ever let enthusiasm or excitement push you into a decision despite the obvious warning signs? So we ended up starting our day at 9:30 a.m, which is 4 hours later than we originally planned. And at 10:15 a.m, we'd made that steep 430 meter ascent up to the base of our route to a quintessential 5-4 graded climb in the Yosemite decimal system called the Trough. By this point, it begun to lightly rain, and we took cover under a tree to assess our situation. We talked about all of our times in the mountain crags of Erie and Snowdonia and the Lake District, where we climbed all day in the rain, largely forgetting that this was over 10 years ago, past when climbing dominated everything we did rather than just one luxurious week a year. I shared an anecdote of how mountain historians could always tell when foul weather struck in the Alps, as the only names in the summit logbooks would be British, Welsh, or Scottish. We had to climb all year round if we wanted to get out into the mountains. But of course, what we had forgotten was that we also get very little thunder and lightning in the UK comparatively to everywhere else because of where we are positioned in the globe. So as we studied the route description, we realised we were a little too low for the start of the route. However, an easy enough crack system would take us up and add an extra pitch of climbing. If the weather got worse, we would be able to abandon our route at the normal start, just like walk off. If we had to abandon later, we figured that we could rappel from the next ledge. My friend took the first lead, the rain continued, and we discovered that granite is like glass in the wet. So easy climbing became slow, but eventually it was my turn. I started up the crack, and then crack of the thunder above. So before I continue, when have you underestimated or overlooked key challenges in a situation, and how did that influence the outcome that you experienced? So realizing the thunderstorm was on us far earlier than we anticipated, I flew up that pitch. All tiredness and concern of my leg just vanished in a flash of adrenaline, panic, and fear. We focused on our immediate safety, which is about identifying the descent route, which was some slabs that would lead off rightwards. We cleaned the anchor in a matter of moments. We managed the rope barely well enough that we could use it for a quick rappel from a tree if we needed to. We found shelter in a small cave as more thunder went on overhead, and we paused a minute to just catch our breaths and just recover from scraping all of our arms and legs onto granite in the dash. We then dashed again for a tree line, sliding down a gully that became a waterfall, and breathe. This was all about single loop learning, right? Focusing on correcting actions based on feedback to improve performance without questioning our underlying assumptions or beliefs. Can you think of a time when you acted quickly in response to an immediate situation without digging deeper into the root causes? So with single loop learning, we ask, what can we do to move faster in a thunderstorm? At this level of reflection, our ideas for improvement might include learning to climb faster on wet granite, keeping the rope in tight coils at each belay, and constructing anchors that can be dismantled in moments. And, this is really pertinent for me, keeping calm under pressure. I did not do that, honestly, and to my shame to a degree. Fortunately, my friend is now a teacher, but is an ex-paramedic, and he learnt how to be calm under pressure. These are all good skills to cope in a dangerous situation, but remain reactive to a situation that has already unfolded. As we made our descent through the pine forest back to the truck, we began to reflect on how we had got into this situation. We were aware of the forecast. We had a plan to leave early to minimize this, and yet we still headed up the mountain late anyway. So by reflecting on our decision making, we now shifted into double loop learning. Why did we start the climb despite the possibility of a thunderstorm? Have you ever experienced a moment when you've questioned your underlying assumptions or biases and how this might lead to a different strategy or action? If so, you have entered double loop learning. We evaluated the assumptions that led to this decision, such as why did we underestimate the weather forecast? We viewed 3 different weather apps and chose the most optimistic, not the most realistic. We were overly focused on completing the climb, ignoring the potential risks. Our investment for a week of climbing was high, and this skewed our risk profile. And we were talking quite a bit about risk as we both have small children, and reflecting on how this had changed since the last times that we'd been climbing. So how can we better evaluate the weather conditions and make safer decisions in the future? A little bit of research after the fact made it clear that applying the same weather logic in the UK to California wasn't going to cut it. As I said, the UK mountains rarely get thunderstorms because of the higher latitude. We agreed that rain clouds meant no climbing. So that was one adaptation to our logic that we made, or our decision-making process. So double loop learning involves not only adjusting actions based on feedback, but also examining and potentially changing the underlying assumptions and strategies that guide those actions. Back at the campground, with a whole day of decompression ahead of us, we began to talk more deeply about our values and beliefs in the importance of completing or starting a climb. When was the last time you challenged your core values or beliefs? How did it shape or redefine your goals? We entered triple loop learning at this point, questioning our core values and beliefs. So what is the underlying motivation for our climbing? And how does risk factor into that? So for me, climbing is honestly about mental well-being. It's not about climbing hard, climbing fast, or climbing dangerous. Quite the opposite, really. In fact, my greatest times are high up on rock, facing out into the mountainscape, sitting at a belay, and looking out across the world. And we considered if personal biases were influencing our risk tolerance. So we were really trying to recapture the spirit of a decade ago, largely without the groundwork, and definitely without the fitness in my case, to sustain that. And then how could we align our climbing philosophy with a greater emphasis on safety and responsible decision making? We decided that we didn't need to be solely focused on the bigger routes. Across the valley from Tequit's is Suicide Rock, a shorter crag, in American terms, that offered high quality routes. It's rarely climbed in the summer due to the heat, and it was hot. But we were happy to wake up at the crack of dawn to get some climbing done. This was an adaptation that we were happy to make. There was also bouldering lower in the valley that diminished the risk of storms even further from what we were thinking. And we also agreed that even a walk at the end of the day in the valley was an option that we would find fun. I was complaining about my leg and talking about the pain in my leg. At this point, actually, I found that just walking and easing it off was enough for me to be mobile throughout the week. So triple loop learning goes deeper by questioning and challenging the core values, beliefs, and the paradigms that drive an organization's design decisions and actions, leading to transformative change and potential redefinition of goals and strategies. So here I've transitioned from a personal story into applied learning from an organizational perspective. So through the lens now of an agile coach, such as myself, our adventure naturally emerged as a microcosm of agility, illustrating the significance of adaptability and responsiveness in the face of evolving challenges. Just as we transition from single loop learning to double loop learning, tweaking strategies based on real-time feedback, I reflected on how businesses can similarly benefit from continuous refinement through introspection. So in your professional experiences, how have the principles in agility and adaptability played out for you? Can you recall an instance where introspection led to a transformative challenge in strategy or outcome? It was the exploration of triple loop learning that truly enriched our perspective. In sync with agile tenets that prioritize responding to change over following a plan, we embarked on a significant reassessment of our climbing values and risk perception. This inner analysis led to redefine success, align our core beliefs with actionable steps, and embrace decisions that harmonize safety with progress. The synergy between our climbing philosophy and the agile ethos was evident. Much like our recalibration on the cliffs, businesses can leverage triple loop learning to foster adaptability, champion change, and ignite transformative progress. The following day, we climbed 2 routes on Suicide Rock before the hint of thunderclouds led us down to the Idlewild pizza places. That was a good afternoon. In the days that followed, we climbed 2 longer routes onto Keats Peak, after all, including the Trough, when we shifted our goal to enjoy great climbing safely in the mountains and not just specific routes, the opportunities to accomplish our goal magnified exponentially. To me, this is an embodiment of how agile principles can amplify achievements, broaden horizons, and help guide us to future adventure. So as a final point or thought of conclusion, how can we apply the concept of being flexible with our goals? Like shifting from specific routes to just enjoying climbing in our professional lives? What opportunities might open up when we redefine our measures of success? I hope you've enjoyed this story and the linking back to triple loop learning. I have another climbing story that I think I will share next time around the core protocols and forming a climbing partnership or a climbing triad. Thank you very much. This has been the Triple Loop Agile Podcast. I'm Carl Rogers, and thank you for your time.